First of all, I want to thank the World Trade Organization, Clinton, Gore, Barshevsky, and all the fat cats for making this enormous blunder. I cannot believe it. They have managed to unite all of us under one tent when they've been quite successful for the last 10 years splitting us apart. And I think they've really screwed up. I don't know how anyone could have more eloquently put in one package something that we're all against. They very eloquently got across that it's the same monster which is destroying the Uwe people. It's the same monster that is cutting down the rainforest where the orangutans live. It's the same monster which is forcing us to eat food we don't want to eat, forcing farmers to produce what they don't want to farm. It's the same monster which is doing all this stuff. It's one enemy. It's not several. So it's the same apparatus that we're out. And they have finally defined it really clearly for us, and by overreaching too far. And just over the last couple of weeks, I don't know if you all get this stuff, so I'll share it with you. We've just got some articles which make me think we're going to win this sucker. They have really pushed too far. They've made too many enemies. This was called Global Food Fights. This was Economic View from David Sanger. He says, last week in a sometimes raucous meeting in a chapel here within view of Lake Champlain, this is Vermont, they implored a team of American negotiators to keep the WTO from running their lives. These are organic farmers in Vermont. Saying, the WTO is a farce, said Susanna Jones, an organic farmer. It was created as a shield to protect corporate profits from around the world. Why do we put up with a central organization that can tell us how we can farm and what we can eat? And the response of the journalist is, good question. And Ms. Jones is not the only one asking it. You've got San Francisco Chronicle, front page, starts out, question, what do the Marine Mammal Protection Act, the Endangered Species Act, and Clean Air rules of the United States and Canada have in common? They all have been weakened by WTO. San Francisco Chronicle. Here we have Denver Post, Monsanto suing farmer, where they're going in and picking plants and doing testing on it to see if it might have their gene in it, which is their Roundup resistant gene, which can say, you're planting our stuff without permission, and you're not even allowed to use those seeds again. What are you doing? It's causing an enormous backlash. They've really goofed up this time. Then you have all these people going after the roots of the problem. The roots of the problem, killing corporations, all these movements to go after corporate charters. I was just handed this one going on, and citizens of Oregon have started an initiative which will say this: we, the citizens of Oregon, grant and restrict the privilege of conducting business in the state of Oregon to companies and corporations, their agents, blah, 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 whose practice and comply with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So it's out of sincere gratitude I thank these yahoos for finally making it clear who our enemies are, and they're not each other. You know, that's one of the things that we bring to, the strength we bring to this from all different places is all the diverse power of empathy. And I thought for a long time, I was, show you how long I've been doing this stuff. I was an activist in Berkeley in 1970 at the time when all the radicals were kissing up to the Black Panthers trying to expropriate their concerns. And it didn't work very well then, you know, these white hippies trying to latch on to this. So I realized then that basically we have to resonate to whatever moves us. That's what moves us. That's the power. You can't really borrow it. But here we have the power of all those different strains of empathy and conviction coming in from all over the place to fight this dead and archaic being. What do all these struggles have in common? All of them, whether it's animal protection, whether it's worker rights, whether it's protecting children, whether it's protecting the environment, they rely on local control. What do they have in common with WTO? It takes it away very clearly. In fact, I would add on for Mike's admonition of if we want one thing, what do we want? It seems one thing that's coming clear, and the thing that shocks almost anybody about this damn thing is it takes away sovereignty. It takes away sovereignty. It knocks down our laws. One thing that we're getting across, and it's getting across right now through all the state attorneys general who are looking at what happened with the law in Massachusetts forbidding investment of Burma. Now they're going, wait a minute. You can't tell us that. State of California is about ready being forced to take MTBE, the fuel additive. And they're saying, no way. So suddenly they've pushed it far. And I would say if we want one thing also, we go after that one little thing. Make it so their laws don't trump ours. Then we've eviscerated them. They won't want it without that. The way it's termed under WTO is that all this stuff that we thought was good, wildlife protection, environmental protection, protection of workers, protecting of children, that is all now termed technical barriers to trade. And it's all listed in this big fat book which describes all of what they are, one by one by one by one. These are the stuff that really we've outgrown. The world is too big and fast moving to tolerate this stuff anymore. And they are now termed disguises to stopping free trade. What are the direct impacts this has had on animals? First of all, probably the most famous is the tuna dolphin case. And that was really decided with GATT before WTO, but now GATT is part of WTO and it's the same rules. And basically what it says, and it all comes down to one little thing, basically, is you cannot discriminate on any product coming in because of how it was obtained, methods of production. And I know a lot of you know this already, but I'm going to go through the whole thing briefly. Methods of production is everything. It means you cannot discriminate if it kills dolphins or it doesn't kill dolphins. Of course, all of it kills tuna. There were two very scary things about that. Number one, it said there were two GATT rulings. Number one said you cannot dictate to other countries how to conserve their quote-unquote resources. Of course, there's a lot of animal folks here that refuse to believe tuna are resources. That's another argument. Number two, that it is not necessary to protect animals. That was their second ruling. Now, let me see. In the Eastern Tropical Pacific, before the Dolphin Protection Act was brought in 1991, about 7 million dolphins died by having tuna nets set around them. Now, and when they put in the Dolphin Protection Act, that plummeted to about 5,000 a year instead of 300,000 a year. And now they say, but it's not necessary to protect dolphins. Even those dolphin populations, none of them have recovered since then. That was the first one. And what that has done now is the law that was put in to replace the Dolphin Protection Act 2 years ago in 1997 says that not only can this stuff come in, but it can be fraudulently labeled. That you can now be labeled with a dolphin safe label even though it ain't. So it's now, you can see the weft and weave of consumer fraud right along with animal destruction. Then we have the turtle case, which just came down in April. And the turtle case was odd in that, on one hand, WTO said, yes, this is a law which is genuinely trying to protect turtles, and it genuinely works. The law said, as part of the Endangered Species Act, it's illegal to import any shrimp into the country from the United States, from countries that do not mandate the use of a turtle excluder device in their nets. Now that drops the mortality, something like 97% that they would use this. Well, the WTO panel said, yes, this is a good method, and no, you can't use it. You cannot tell them what to do, and you folks go off in the corner and work out something more amenable, which doesn't restrict trade. The background for this, though, is something really more ominous, and it's the commoditization of the world and the wild. And the background of that, a couple years ago, I attended the Convention on Trade in Endangered Species. And that is 154 countries that get together to decide how much trade there shall be. It was in Zimbabwe. You all may have heard of it. The main issue in there, the one that got the most recognition, was the opening up of ivory trade again, at least a trade of 50,000 tons of it to Japan from Botswana, Namibia, and Zimbabwe. And the argument in CITES more and more every year is one of these arguments that has been used very successfully to split us in half. And the argument goes like this, that the increase of protection of any plant or animal on Earth takes food from the mouths of starving Aboriginal people. Meaning, if you stop the sale of ivory, then you are depriving those people of income. Well, I talked to a lot of Zimbabweans about this, and it took about 30 seconds to realize a living elephant that people come to visit for 90 years is worth a whole lot more to that person than killing it and taking its ivory. They don't get any of the money from that. The middlemen get it, and the government gets it, and the elephant's dead. I also realized with that is that probably the single greatest thing to save elephants in Zimbabwe would be to empower women, because most men have 4 to 5 wives, 4 to 5 kids per wife, and cattle for dowries for all of them. It's a real problem. And then they say there's not enough room for the elephants. It's a fraud, the idea that the only sustainable use. Another way that's been used to divide us was a good old jobs versus environment argument. Remember that one? And it was really pushed by a guy named Ron Arnold over here in Bellevue. You guys know that fella? He set up something called the Wise Use Groups. Okay, but they now have gotten a little smarter and have morphed into sustainable use. And sustainable always has implicit in it lethal sustainable use, as if the way to the sustainable use can only be done by killing the animals a little bit at a time rather than not, rather than, say, bird watching rather than bird killing. But it's a fraud in all cases, and it's used to split us and to decoy from the real enemy. Deforestation. One of the things that's happening with deforestation, it's both a direct and indirect cause of destruction, both of native indigenous people and of wildlife forever. Now, with roads being cut into formerly roadless areas, the bushmeat trade is booming all over the place. So all the animals they couldn't get to before now are streaming out of there. You have some odd connections. For example, when the Dolphin Protection Act came in, one of the groups that hurt the worst, that mobilized big time to overthrow it, was guess who? The Cali cartel. Almost all the tuna boats coming out of Venezuela and Mexico are owned by guess who? Cali cartel. They run something along with the tuna they call atún blanco. And they were very upset when they found out that their nice little way to bring that atún blanco up to our coast was shut off because of this Dolphin Protection Act. That was the main money and power behind overthrowing it. So now we have this unholy combination between drug trade and animal trade all around the world. They're shipping parrots up. The Fish and Wildlife inspectors are used to opening up a box of parrots with some dead in the bottom. Well, they ship them dead with cocaine inside of them now. Very smart. One of the things that also has happened, you all know about the recent thing with found out with the Monsanto gene splice corn? They gene splice a gene from Bacillus thuringiensis, which is a commonly used organic pesticide which kills caterpillars. Well, they gene splice that into a type of corn. No problem. They did tests on bees. It didn't hurt them, blah, 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 blah. But now they just found out that when the pollen from that corn dusts milkweed, it wipes out monarch butterflies. Now, this isn't just in little test plots. They have 3 to 4 million acres of this yield guard corn planted across the Midwest already now. That's what's happening. They say right now, us Americans are now eating about 30% of our diet is bioengineered food. And Dr. Fox is going to talk more about that. I'm going to leave bioengineered organisms, hormone-treated beef to him. But the indirect threats really show you how we are combined here in animal and human issues. You have antibiotics in food, which now are leaching into the waters, which are now making all of us generally weaker. You have deforestation again. You have war. What happens in war? The arms manufacturers get richer and the poor get poorer, and what happens then? They go after whatever wildlife they can to eat. Then you have global warming caused by greenhouse gases, caused by intensive farming, caused by transport. You have dirty gasoline that's mandated on us, which hurts everything. You have water pollution. You have poverty, again, causing destruction of wildlife. You have the supporting of despots, which causes poverty. You have the stifling of all laws already, before they even come about. You'd have Sweden with a law to protect their environment, and EU says, no, you can't have it. It's too restrictive. You have loss of biodiversity all over the place because of large monoculture, which is encouraged by World Trade Organization. I'm going to cut it short because I know Dr. Fox is here and he's better than I am. But let me just talk. To me, we have an incredible opportunity here to put forth our vision. They have basically given us a wonderful opportunity to say, not only, their way ain't going to work. Okay, and it's like a door is stuck and you push it one way so it can open the other way. Well, they pushed it the one way and it ain't going to work. People aren't going to have this stuff down their throat. So then they're going to say, okay, if not that way, what? And then we're in the position, rather than rattling the cage from the outside, to come up with the ideas that move us into the next millennium, that protect our families, protect our home, protect our children. That's really what it's about, eh? Doesn't matter if you're for worker rights, human rights, women's rights, children's rights, animal rights. It's one big package. We have an opportunity that they have laid a table for us.